What's going on, everyone? Welcome to episode number 77 here on the Proven Knowledge Podcast. This is the Creator Series. Today I welcomed a Queens, New York native. His name is Dre A.M. He's a really dope lyrical MC. I believe he came across my work on Instagram through my page and everything, and I saw that he was liking a lot of my photos and commenting and stuff, so I ended up checking out his page and saw a few of his songs and everything through Spotify and some of his videos. And I was just very impressed with his, like I said, lyrical ability and everything. And he's got a real old school, nostalgic feel to him, very New York sounding feel, classic hip hop. So I followed him and I actually reached out to him about being on the show this week as a fill-in. I was going to reach out to him later on in time, but it just so happens I needed a guest spot this week. So I was glad to get him on the show. We talked about his different influences coming up. He said that 8 Mile, the Eminem movie, was obviously played a huge role in the reason he ended up getting into hip hop to begin with and everything. We talked about his writing abilities and how he likes to freestyle a lot of his material when he hears the beat and everything. He also talked about his producing journey, how that's begun in the last couple years. And it'll be interesting, I think, to see if he takes that up more and more, because I think if he's able to craft his own beats with the rhymes and everything, it'll be even better for him. He also shouts out a couple close collaborators who you'll hear about in the episode. But overall, I'm just happy that Dre is doing his thing, and like I said, I can tell that he just has the raw talent. So if he matches that with, the work ethic, I don't think there's any reason why he won't be around for a long time. And he said he's only 21, which is incredible. Like, he's got a long way to go. So shout out to him for, supporting this podcast, for supporting me and what I do. I'm grateful for that. And I hope you guys enjoy this episode. So without further ado, let's get right into it. Welcome, everyone, to episode number 77 here on the Proven Knowledge Podcast. This is the Creator Series. Today I welcome a really dope lyrical MC. He's out of Queens, New York. Discovered this guy on Instagram. Dre A.M. is here. How are you, man?
I'm doing great. I'm excited about music in general. I'm excited to record, get better with music, meet other musicians, do features.
Yes, sir. Well, I'm glad to get you on the show today. I don't really know a lot about you and your story yet, because we kind of just got in touch a few months ago. So I'm looking forward to kind of seeing, what you can offer this episode. Usually to start, we have every guest kind of give a little bit of background, how you got your artist name, how long you've been doing music, kind of the basic information for those that might not be familiar with you and what you have to bring to the table.
Right, so I'm a 21-year-old artist. I'm from Queens, New York. I've been writing verses ever since I was like 12 years old. The first thing that originally inspired me to create music and create rap music in general was watching the movie 8 Mile with Eminem back in the day. And just something about that movie to me, the story of how he came up, how he had odds against him, and how he originally choked on stage at one point in the movie. I just thought it was very inspiring. And I've always felt like an underdog in life. And, usually when you see rappers, they tend to be people that seem like, the toughest guys or the coolest guys in the room. Mm. But, I never felt like that growing up. So it inspired me personally. So yeah, that's how I started. As far as, that's pretty much it.
Mm. Yeah, that's pretty cool, honestly. And I feel like that's a great movie to kind of be your introduction too, because it's got a lot of different things in there, like you said, about kind of overcoming that fear of being an artist. Every time I watched that movie, it was he was having to overcome a lot of different struggles in his life. He was broke and his friends were kind of doing crazy shit and everything, and then he was trying to make it as a rapper, and he had to go through all the trials and tribulations to be able to get to that point at the end where he wins the battle and everything, and all that stuff happens for him. So I think that's kind of a cool way to say that was your introduction to wanting to be a rapper and everything. Now, did I see that you also produce as well? You do a little bit of producing too on a lot of your stuff?
Yeah, I've been doing production for a couple of years.
Nice.
it's interesting to me as well. My favorite producer is Jay Dilla. That's how I got into production. I'm more of a rapper though first, but I always think it's good to like have knowledge of production. I feel like that makes your flow better and gives you a better knowledge of like the song structure and everything. So yeah.
Yeah, and Jay Dill is like a legend, obviously. Like he's probably one of the best people you could probably look after and be like, I kind of want to, learn that style. And like I think that style fits exactly what your style of music is. It's like old school hip hop, boom bap, the real gritty stuff. So I think that's pretty cool. So obviously, like New York, you're in New York, a big melting pot of different styles. Obviously, hip hop has been around there forever. It was pretty much invented in New York. So for you, like, how do you approach being an up and comer in the city, trying to kind of make their own lane? Like, have you ever thought about that, or that hasn't really crossed your mind yet?
Yeah, it's difficult because you have a lot of rappers like across the world in general, but like especially in New York. So I try my best to differentiate myself from everyone that raps in New York.
Mm-hmm.
I like to think that my sound is pretty unique. I try to incorporate the New York sound, but I also try to stray away from it a little bit as well, so it sounds different.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's still a process.
Yeah. So I know you said Eminem, obviously, from 8 Mile, big influence for you. Who else is probably like, maybe growing up or even now, you just study their work, like you study their rhyme schemes and you study how they approach each song? Like, who are you listening to that has really helped you become a better rapper, you think?
So I think the first guy I really looked into where I was studying his music on a consistent basis was Earl Sweatshirt.
Mm.
I think like his older music, like the Doris era, the I Don't Like Shit, I Don't Go Outside era.
Mm.
I just think that his flow, he had like a really unique sense of meter where sometimes like it would be kind of offbeat almost, and he would kind of pause at certain points. So I was used to like basic flows when I was very young and I first started listening to rap music.
Mm-hmm.
But Earl Sweatshirt style, I think, was my first influence that I looked into. I'd say another guy would be Aesop Rock from Rhymesayers. I think he has a very unique lyrical style with the way that he says things. Like, it's very metaphorical and almost like sometimes it doesn't even make sense, like on first listen. Who else? I think Flatbush Zombies as well.
Mm.
Michi Darko is a personal favorite of mine. I like how gritty his voice sounds. I like how it sounds almost like he's the devil or something. It's very cool. And also JID from Dreamville. His flows are very exciting. I studied his double time flows especially. But yeah, I'd say those are like the top 4 guys that I studied to try to develop my style.
Yeah. Because I know, like, Earl is very unorthodox. Like, I feel like he's always been kind of in his own lane and did his own thing. And, like, his fans understand, like, his type of music and everything. And it's obviously changed over the years, but I think it's still, like, he still kind of takes risks and does very cool stuff with his sounds. And I know, like, Flatbush, like, my friend that I work with, he's a big Flatbush Zombies guy. So he always, like, talks about them and how good they are and everything. So I think they're another group that, like, they're not afraid to try new things, you know what I mean? Like, they're trying to push the boundaries of hip-hop and everything and incorporate these different sounds in there and everything. So I'd say that's definitely kind of – I hear that in your music a lot as well, like, from what I've heard. It's like you said before, you're about the traditional hip-hop, but you're also trying to put your own flavor in there as well, and that's a great thing, you know what I mean? Like, I think that's all you can do. So that's super awesome. So out of those people, or maybe someone else, is there anyone that's like on your dream collaboration list, like a bucket list, like you might want to do a song with one day if you had the chance to, or is there no one that comes to mind? Or
I have like this pipe dream of having Danny Brown on one of my songs.
That would be
like
cool.
I think, yeah, that would be very exciting. That's like a dream feature. That's the number one.
Mm-hmm. You think you'd have him like on a hook or doing a verse? Like, what do you think? Because he can spit too. Like, he's pretty damn good. He's super underrated, I feel like.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I'd have him on a verse, definitely.
Yeah. He's another guy that, like, he brings, like, a very, like, funny attitude sometimes to his music, like, with his bars and stuff. Like, you get a laugh out of him and everything, but, like, he can really, like, spit. So it's like, you gotta take him seriously, too. Like,
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, that's something I noticed about Danny is that, like, some of his bars kind of sound tongue-in-cheek, but, like, he's killing it at the same time. It's very interesting.
Because I think I first heard him on the One Train song with A$AP Rocky and there was like 7 other people on there. I think Danny Brown was like toward the middle or like toward the end, and I was like, this dude's kind of like cool. Like he's got a witty like personality to him. His voice is very like stands out a lot. And I found out he was from Detroit, and I'm like, wow, it's kind of like a totally different like style of rap for Detroit for like what you're used to hearing out of there, but. Yeah, he always stuck out to me as like a very unique voice in hip hop for sure. So obviously you've said you've worked with some people in the past. You've worked with producers, and I don't know how many artists you've worked with up to this point. But is there anyone that you've worked with who kind of you think you have a really good chemistry with them, or maybe someone you want to shout out that's like someone we should be on the lookout for? Maybe that you're gonna be collabing with, or that you have already collabed with.
So I've worked with a couple of guys that I think are on the come up, and I think they're exciting and that should be watched. I have my collaborator Pareto. He's from Massachusetts. I went down over there to like record with him. We made a track called "Kids Like Cannabis." It got like 1,000 streams. It's pretty damn good. Yeah, he has a unique style as well. He's definitely influenced by Earl Sweatshirt as well. I think that he sounds a bit more like Earl than I do, but he's pretty good. And also, I have a track coming out next week called For the Music, which is featuring Armstrong Worldwide. He's from Houston, Texas. He makes like a more melodic style, but on this track, he tried to like, blend with my style, the more gritty New York sound. So it's pretty interesting. But yeah, those are 2 guys that I would mention.
Nice. I'll have to look them up for sure, because every episode when I have, the guests kind of give a few collaborators, I always go and look at their pages and hear their music as well. So always down to discover some new people. So obviously the past year, there's been a lot gone on, pandemic, all kinds of different challenges for people. For you personally, is there anything that has been like maybe a hurdle or something you've had to kind of overcome to continue to push things forward in your career and your life, you think?
I think, inspiration, like struggling with consistently having a source of inspiration is one thing. It's also, demotivating sometimes, like, to put like so much work into a song or an album or a concept and to release it and for it to get like 10 views, that's another thing. I also struggle with like some mental health issues. I'm not going to go like too into depth about what, but that's another thing that is kind of difficult, to stay consistent, because I think consistency is the number one thing that brings people to the top. So that's been a struggle of mine, but I'm trying to keep my head down and just focus.
Yeah. I think that's been one of the biggest things for me as well, is just like trying to figure out how to push through. And then there's also like, there's times of the year where things aren't maybe going as well as they were before. Like they call it like winter season, right? Where like a lot of like your fans aren't really in tune with what you're trying to do maybe sometimes, and you're not getting the gigs you want and things like that. So it's like, I think like what you said is just, you got to figure out how to push through all that stuff and just continue to build that momentum even when nothing's happening. That's really the most challenging part of just being in music in general. So I think it's definitely something a lot of people can relate to for sure. For you, what do you think really you want your lasting impact to be, as far as like when you're releasing music and people hear it? What do you think you want them to take away at the end of the day? Is there any type of like underlying message that you really want fans to kind of have stick with them no matter what the song's about?
Well, I'd say the number one thing that I try to do with my music that I want to get across to people is I just want the track to sound like nobody like did it before, or create a sound that's like so unique that it hasn't been done and it's fresh to people's ears, and it kind of creates like a new excitement or like a new sound in the subgenre or in the genre. Like I have a personal message that I want to get across, like lyrically, like about myself, my struggles with like isolation and like depression or whatever. But I think my main focus is just creating something like entirely fresh, just like a collection of sounds that normally don't go together.
So how do you approach writing, you think? Are you like freestyling a lot of the time? Are you on like pen and pad, or does it not really matter to you? Do you kind of just go with what the beat is telling you to go with? Or like...
Yeah, so I freestyle a lot, but what I do for songs is I will sit down and write 16 bars. And at first, before I start writing, I'll just start mumbling random sounds to like find out what flow I'm going to use. Mm-hmm. And then I just put lyrics to it and then I record.
Mm-hmm. Has that been the process then the whole time, or it's kind of evolved over time? Like, do you think you found yourself kind of changing your methods at all as the years go by, or not?
No, I've stuck with the same process of just mumbling sounds, getting the flow, and then putting the lyrics to it. Yeah.
Because usually, like, I know every writer has kind of a different process, and I've heard different things. It's like some people are strictly just writing things down the whole time. Maybe they'll go in freestyle, and then they'll go back and change some things from what they freestyled. Like, they might freestyle a whole, like you said, 16, and then they'll go back and be like, I'm going to take these words out. I'm going to put these new words in there, maybe something that kind of fits better or whatever. So I'm always interested to see, like, what everybody's process is and kind of how they get things out there. I asked this question a couple weeks ago. For you, are you more of, let's put out a bunch of singles and see where they go? Or are you someone that might eventually do an album? Or do you not really think about, like, how you're putting out music? Because I know, like, with streaming, there's obviously this whole thing where everyone's saying, put out more singles because they stream better and they do better, and albums don't do as well now or whatever. Has that ever crossed your mind, or you kind of just do the music you want to do and you don't really care about something like that?
So I'm an album guy, but I'm in a singles world, unfortunately. Yeah. So I'm creating a bunch of singles. I want to release a bunch of singles so I can build hype. But I'm currently creating a concept album called Bad Kid, Good City. And it's going to be 12 songs. And that concept is about being kind of like in a suburban area, trying to get out, find excitement and challenges and adventure like outside of it. So I'm creating that. But while I build up to that, I'm releasing singles like monthly. I might make it, bi-weekly at some point. But I'm building up hype for an album that I'm in the process of making right now.
I really feel like the singles serve that purpose of, like, they help kind of build hype for the bigger thing. So it's like when people say that albums are kind of like gone or whatever, it's almost like I feel like the fans and like the real music lovers love the albums more than the singles because it's a real story. Like you said, you're trying to craft a real story and a concept behind that project. So it's like, why would people not want to hear that? Like, why would people not want to get that story through more than just one song? Because one song is like, it's a moment, right? But then the moment's over pretty quick, and you don't get to keep continuing in that story. So it's like with an album, and I think this is why people always remember albums. They don't really remember songs as much as far as like where were you when this album came out, or how old were you when this album came out? Because it's like you remember the story, and you remember at that point of your life, like where you were when you heard that, or where you were when you like made that or whatever. So I just think that albums are always going to have a place. I think it just depends on like how you approach it and who your fans are and everything. So, but I'm looking forward to hearing that you're talking about, because that concept sounds pretty fitting to what I think like your brand and what your sound is to begin with. So I think that'll be great, honestly. Like,
thanks.
For real. So I don't know if you can reveal like when we can start expecting some of this stuff. Like, are you doing stuff before the end of the year still? Or are you waiting for 2022? Like, what do you have kind of planned? Do you have anything like dates planned out or anything yet?
So I'm going to be dropping like a single a month. And then in 6 to 8 months from now, I'm going to be releasing the concept album.
So we could probably expect that like the spring or summer, probably next year then, most likely.
Right, yeah.
Nice. So I only have a few more questions, and then we'll be wrapping up here. These are questions I ask in every episode, pretty much general life stuff. If you could go back 10 years ago, maybe give yourself a piece of advice, or maybe not change anything at all, what do you think you would do?
Go outside more. Talk to people more. I feel like I just avoided people a lot when I was younger.
Yep.
I feel like it made me kind of like socially like withdrawn.
Mm-hmm.
And like I don't like that. And I feel like I've made a lot of steps in the past couple years to get past that. And like I feel a lot better. So yeah.
Mm-hmm. I feel you there because I'm an introvert, man. Like I don't like to leave the house at all. If I could stay here all day and just do nothing, I would. Like, but it's definitely good to get more social, like here and there for sure. So if we flip it then and we say 10 years from now, where do you think you want to be in your career and your life in general?
I think that I want, obviously I want to be a famous musician, but I think that I want a bigger support system around me. I want more people around me to kind of like share that success with, because I think that connection is like one of the best feelings. I think, you know, because we're human beings, like that's kind of how we operate. So yeah.
Good to have that team too, like that chemistry, team chemistry and everything, be able to work off of different people. So that's awesome. Do you have any final words of wisdom for the listeners today?
Focus on yourself. Tune out the noise. There's going to be a lot of people that won't really understand where you're coming from because you have your own experiences and you came to where we are now by yourself and nobody else saw it. So just focus on yourself. Stick with your goals, even if they seem unfavorable at the moment. Just keep going.
Mm-hmm. Love that, man. Well, Dre, that's all I have for you today, man. We went through this pretty quick, but I appreciate your time, man. I'm looking forward to hearing that album, hearing all these singles you got coming out. Keep going, man, because you know, like I said before this episode even started, you can spit, man. You got a real lyrical ability, and you got a gift, man. So continue to work hard, and I'm looking forward to seeing all the stuff you got coming up, man.
Thanks, man. Thanks for having me.
Thanks, guys, for listening today. That was episode 77. We'll be back this time next week. As always, hit the support button on your podcast streaming platform if you'd like to send us any funds, and feel free to leave us that 5-star rating if you enjoyed today's episode. So we'll see you then. Thanks, guys.